So now, as you can see, some nice green inside. So let's work on the section. So what I like to do is mark center by that little boy. My pens actually work. Craptacular. And give me a rough, at least a rough center. Because what I'm going to do, I don't have a collet big enough at the moment to support the 20 mil rod. So what I do is I mark centers. Like the way that's sitting. Usually I have a little brush around. Clean tools or straight tools. There we are. I mean, it's not going to be totally true, but that's what we're going to do. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it down to basically like 11.9 millimeters. Alright, so because I'm going to drill, the cap hole is going to be 12 millimeters, 12.5 millimeters depending, but so I'll turn it down to roughly 12 mil. Actually, let's leave it a little proud. Let's turn it to 12. Yeah, let's turn it to 12.5 millimeters. Alright, my turn speed's going to be roughly 4,200 RPM, and I'm going to use a basically just a round carbide tool to turn it down. Really light passes to start. I know that it's going to take a little bit longer. That's pretty, I'm going to guess about 14 mil. 14.5, 14.7. $13.8, $13.7. $13.2. So we're getting pretty close to 12.5 millimeters, so I'm just going to check. And what I like to do, I like to use a skew as a scraper. Most of my skews I'll put a very heavy curve in them. And this way I can use it as a scraper basically. I find it always gives me the cleanest, straightest finish. So with acrylics anyway, so this is what I do. Just very lightly scraping at it, and I find it gives me the cleanest finish, so I can move to sandpaper pretty quickly, higher grit sandpaper like a 320 to start, even a 600 grit, and yeah, no tool marks. Or I just cast this blank this morning, and I thought it was pretty crappy. I thought the black bled in, but looking at it now, it's really good. It's really gorgeous looking. I'm actually pretty proud of that one. Can't wait to turn the rest of it. So basically, right, we're sitting at 12.57 and 12.51. So I'm just going to trim this down just a hair. Alright, this way, because what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to chuck it up in a collet chuck, and then I'm going to turn the tenon basically 9.5 to 10 mil. You can get away with 10 mil tapping, but the threads are really coarse, like really heavy. So I like to turn it about 9.6 mil, and then tap M10 M10 by 1 tap or die. My apologies. But we'll get into that. What I'm going to do now is I'm basically going to turn the body and the cap, seeing that I have the centers in and set up. So we'll pop this bad boy out. And that's what we have so far. So we have our centers for drilling, which is awesome for drilling. That way you get your drill bit pretty center. down the whole thing unless you choose to do one side to the other. Using a collet, I find drilling straight through works just as well as drilling one side to the other. So let's get the rest ready. I got a little just a little thing that I toss my working pieces in that I just clip to the lathe. Just seems to, for me, it seems easier to keep track of what I'm working on. I tend to lose things in my madness. So all right, so here's the body. All right, we're going to basically do the same thing again. Should have did all three of them at the start, but yeah. I always try to do things in try to do things together. That way it takes less time to do things. If you already have the centers in, you might as well do everything that needs to be done with between centers. That way it's only when you do your tool change, you don't have to do it again, right? To go back and just like this here, I should have marked all my centers to start with. Then it just could have been a quick boom, 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 turn them all down to rough diameters, and we're ready. So I'm just marking centers here. You know, you're not going to get it dead perfect, and you don't need it to be. That's why you leave extra, right? You always leave yourself room with anything, woodworking, whatever. It always leave yourself extra. Another thing, make sure you wear your safety gear. You'll probably notice I don't wear safety gear. That's my bad. I'll always preach to wear safety gear. I just hate wearing glasses. When you're turning big bowls and things like that, yeah, even I would wear my safety gear. But when it comes to this, like this acrylic and the carbide tools, I just know the tools extremely well, so I don't put glasses on. I don't really fear getting anything in the eye. Now there's always the chance, hell yeah, but sometimes just ride or die. Starting to cut into this blank. You notice it's really black on the outside. This, I'm just my own curiosity here, because I cast this blank this morning. The black, I thought, bled really heavily into the rest of the colors. It was a green, black, and white. But once I'm cutting into it here, I'm noticing it's really lit up. I'm liking it. Now, I just wanted to explain this. If you watch my carbide tool, I know it's hard from that side, but what I'm doing is, as I'm cutting, I'm just skewing to the right a little bit, which is allowing me to direct my my shavings. That's why you'll always notice my shavings fly either straight up or over this way, because I'm just skewing the head just a wee bit to direct it where I want it to go. So you'll notice on the back cut there, you'll notice I always cut from left to right, and that's to direct my shavings away from my face and away from the piece itself. But you'll always find that a back cut will give you a cleaner finish, especially with a carbide tool. I'm not exactly sure why, to be quite honest, but you'll notice that it always wraps up though. So I usually never try to back cut, so just because my shavings tend to wrap up and it just gives me a huge mess. And again, back to safety. I tend to grab stuff off. I'm not really all worried about getting caught, especially turning between centers. If the chuck was in there, it'd be a little different story. But okay, so here basically, what I'm gonna do is basically, I'm looking for 5/8 of an inch. Just because my collets only fit certain sizes. Bigger pens, you'll leave it 3/4 of an inch and work from there. But for my case here, for this pen, I'm not going to turn it big. That's why I left my section a little bit longer, 35 mil, where this is 2.5 inches. I work with both metric and imperial just because it's easier in some cases. You'll find your own method. Yeah, I find that metric bits, metric collets even, which I've ordered a few metric collets because the imperial collets just sometimes don't fit the metric system, as I'm sure you know. Yeah. So what I'll do, just because I like idiot proof, I tend to make mistakes a lot, so I try to minimize those mistakes. I just take my collet, get my rough size, 15.8, and we'll just test it quick and go from there. Scraper. See, once I run the skew as a scraper along the side and I get a full shaving where I can feel the shaving start and end, usually you're pretty darn close to having a pretty straight, basically a straight cut. Right, so back to test. This side's definitely a little smaller, but let's keep going. Like sound is everything. That's why I don't really wear earphones when I'm running the lathe, or because sound tells you if your piece is loose, if you're cutting, chipping, if you're just chipping at it. Sound and the feel, how your shavings come off, things like that, right? Which is typical of any type of machine lathe, basically. I am really happy with this blank. I'm surprised that it turned out this way. The outside look did not look like the inside does. We're still a little bit more. We got 15.3.